I've got an exciting episode for you. Nick Farrenkopf here today, who's the founder of Wibly. And Wibly is a visual learning platform that simplifies complex subjects and engages learners at every level through interactive knowledge trees. Thank you so much for being here, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cool. So I think this is going to be a really fascinating conversation because it's really right at the intersection of AI and software and education and learning things. And so we're going to have a demo that we're actually going to see, I believe the first of its kind demo of the Wibly platform later on. But I wanted to just start off with what kind of gave you this idea to, take AI in this unique approach to education in the first place?
Yeah, great question. So I spent a lot of time as a private tutor for math and science. Honestly, I love that job. I love helping people learn. But one of the things that I really discovered an interest in was AI. Just such a powerful tool to help us do so many different things. And really, the learning space is where I wanted to apply that. So all of those kind of experiences that I had as a tutor, where students just get so lost just trying to learn through an enormous amount of content, so many different sources online, so many different things that they have to remember. There's a lot to manage. So what I really wanted to do was use AI to kind of help streamline that, help them organize that content in a way that makes a lot of sense and makes them get the high, understand the bigger picture of why they're learning what they're learning.
Mhm. I think that's fantastic. And it really resonates with me because, like we said at the beginning, Wibly is a visual learning platform. So it's not just using AI in the traditional sense for education that people might think, where maybe you're making automated voices or maybe you're creating content with AI. But this is actually using it in a totally different way to visually represent uh, concepts through this idea of knowledge trees. So, what is a knowledge tree?
Yeah, so a knowledge tree is just an alternative way to display information, one that's a lot more focused on the visuals. It shows you all of these different concepts as different, let's say, nodes, and it shows you how they're all connected together to build that bigger picture. And that's one of the things that a lot of students nowadays are missing is they spend so much time learning these small little details, but putting it together is a very daunting task. They have too much information, too many classes, so much homework to do. They don't have that time to really process it on their own. So Wibly comes into play, uses AI to kind of draw those pictures out so that the students can get to that end goal faster, learn more in less time.
Mhm. And I really, once again, I really like the concept because as I'm thinking back to my time in school, I remember, reading through textbooks and, the bolded words would be vocabulary. And,
Mhm.
so I'd hone in on the bold words, right? And try to memorize, the next half a sentence or so that came after it, because that's probably what's going to be on the test. But you're totally right. I was trying a lot of times to memorize terms or really just word associate for the test, but there was no visual way of understanding the interconnection of the ideas, right? You might get like a tiny little graphic, every 3 pages or something like that in a textbook, but this is something totally different because it seems to work off of, the importance of vocabulary work and education, but also trying to interconnect it into a deeper understanding of the topic itself, right?
Yeah, yep, because like humans have been looking, they've been seeing things for hundreds of thousands of years. But reading is a relatively new experience. So the parts in our brain that control the reading are a lot smaller than the parts that control just the visuals.
Mm-hmm.
So trying, like as you said, trying to go through a textbook and just memorize or remember the words that come after each line is not a great way to learn in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So Wibly kind of fixates that instead of focusing too much on the language aspect, focuses more on the visual. This is how it's all connected together. These are these bolded words, these terms that you see all the time, these how they relate. And that's really what helps speed up the learning process.
So is knowledge trees and visual knowledge trees something that you worked with whenever you were a tutor?
Yeah, so back when I was a tutor, what I would do is I'd draw these kind of diagrams on a paper with a pencil and say, okay, these are all the terms that you're working with, and then kind of connect the dots. These are how they're related. These terms might lead into these terms. These concepts are kind of the next stage. And really, once I started drawing those graphs, the students really started picking up that information and really were able to learn that, okay, I need to learn this set of geometry concepts first, because once I get those foundations down, then they lead into this next step.
I love that because, a concept I'm super bullish on is the intersection of subject matter experts with AI. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what we have here. You had, a profession as a private tutor, you had techniques within that profession. But whenever you took your own personal expertise, it really and brought them together with AI, it really amplified the
Mhm.
impact, and not just the impact for individuals, but now you're able to, essentially teach hundreds or thousands of students at once with this platform. Who is kind of, the target user? Because we're saying students, and in my imagination, I'm, kind of picturing, kids who are still in school, but I guess it could be anyone. But who's kind of your target market first?
Yeah, honestly, you hit the nail on the head that the way I used to be doing it was very time consuming. Drawing these graphs helps one student do one thing, but really what I wanted is to help everybody learn anything. So if we're talking early stages, the primary targets are going to be more of that high school, middle school range, um, mostly math and science subjects where things start to get really complicated. They turn from something that's kind of tangible into something that's very abstract. So that's a key point. That's a key frustration area for a lot of students nowadays, where they're not able to really understand why or how it all fits together.
Mm-hmm.
But in the long run, Wibly is going to be a tool to help anybody learn anything. So creating this kind of repository of knowledge. If you want to go learn how to play ukulele, you can find some common terms, some other learning resources, or if you want to learn to paint, or if you want to improve your archery skills. So it's really just a way to organize information in a way that makes it a lot more visual.
I think that's I think that's really excellent because we're all constantly learning new things, but lately
Mhm.
I've personally been trying to pick up, different sports and teaching myself how to, bake different things. I never really baked stuff, so now I'm baking bread. But as you get deeper into an idea, you start to look back at what you did at the beginning and see the pitfalls and see where
Mhm.
things are interconnected. And so I love this as kind of this visual platform, especially for people who resonate with, they need to see it. And for me,
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily a visual, I don't have to be visual, but I need to see the full picture to understand any of it. And a lot of education I found is very, they have this term global thinker versus sequential. And a sequential thinker, the way I explain it is, imagine you're playing board games with friends, right? Do you start at the top of the rules list?
Mhm.
If so, and you read all the way through it, you're a sequential thinker. You go step by step by step. But if you're a global thinker, the first question I ask when my friends and I play board games is, what's it take to win? Right? Like, I need to know the end goal. Okay, now tell me the pieces, and then the resources, and then the turns, and who does what. And if they start telling me the pieces and the resources and the turns before I know what it takes to win, it literally goes out of my mind. And
Mhm.
so I can really see how something like Wibly would be valuable for visual thinkers, for global thinkers, and sequential thinkers to really encode information more deeply, right?
100% no, because that's a big problem that a lot of students face nowadays is that idea that they don't really know what they're getting into at the start of a course.
Mm-hmm.
They just jump straight into learning all these new terms, all these new concepts, and then trying to connect it to all the stuff that they already know was sometimes difficult. Trying to piece it together along the way, also very difficult. So what my goal is with Ribley is to provide a way to give them that high level overview that says, hey, these are all the major parts. These are kind of how they fit together. This is what you can expect to learn over the course of the next year. And then that kind of visual tree gives them an alternative way to check in throughout the year that says, okay, hey, I'm halfway through my calculus course. I can go look at this tree and say, okay, I've learned all of these concepts. Cool. Now I just have this chunk left. So it gives them that way to really get a high level overview right at the start without needing to know all of the little details found within the subject.
I think that's a perfect segue. Let's jump into the demo.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, we're here.
We are here.
So
Okay.
let's just start here. I'm just gonna start talking about what I see, right? And then you walk me through the platform. So at the top, I see a little search bar that says search for a topic. To me, that basically means you've got topics already preloaded, right? And then I
Correct.
see this visual knowledge tree, and like you said, it's kind of one node on the left connected to three sub nodes on the right, and feel like I can click into those. And then there's a description on the right where I guess I would input what I thought that topic might mean. Is that ballpark right?
Yeah, all sounds good so far. Yeah, so this is going to be like the very basic intro knowledge tree that I've just used to
Mm-hmm.
kind of introduce people to Wibly, and you hit all the major parts. Each of these little circles are generally called nodes, but they represent different unique concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And all these nodes are connected by relationships that kind of show you how all of this stuff fits together. And collectively, all of these different nodes, relationships together form a knowledge tree, knowledge graph, whatever you want to call it. So yeah,
That's awesome. So go to that top right bar and click on related, and what happens there?
yeah. So let's jump to the other intro knowledge graph. We're going to talk about fruits. So on this graph, we have just a small little knowledge tree filled with 6 basic types of fruits. And here we can see images associated to give you like an idea of what all of these kind of panels hold. So this kind of side panel over here, this is really where the learning starts to happen. So this is where we get to see other information associated to our selected concepts. So these graphs give you kind of that higher level overview of how all this stuff fits together, while the side panel gives you all the extra little details. So if we click into this related panel, we can find all of the concepts that are generally related to our selected.
Mm-hmm.
We can see things like parent, sibling, and child concepts that kind of talk about the hierarchy, whether you're going higher level or more detailed.
Mm-hmm.
And then these properties, this is where the learning starts to happen, is where we start to associate different concepts, different terms, just extra information that help describe our concept and make it unique. So we can see things like the main color of this fruit, the apple, and then some other fun things as part of the demo. So I think this is a good segue into this idea of a transform. So what we want to do is we want to see how all of this information is related. We have 6 different fruits here. And one of the things we could do is we can then group those guys into different buckets.
Mm-hmm.
Give me just a sec. They are gray for whatever reason. Well, they're gray. Anyway, so group them into different buckets. And so here we see things like apple, raspberry, tomato. These are all colored red, or yellow and, or sorry, banana and grape have different main colors.
Mm-hmm.
So one question for you is, which of these fruits do you think are berries? Apple, banana, grape through tomato. Because this is where we start to gain insight. Because these
Okay.
kind of groupings help us see how all these things are related and might show us some information that is not conventionally known.
I feel like this is a trick question. I feel like I'm going to walk right into a trap, but I'm going to say at least strawberries and raspberries are both berries.
Yeah, so if we're talking about what the conventional idea of a berry is, you would be right. So raspberry and strawberry are what people think of as berries, while all these other concepts, maybe not so much.
Mm-hmm.
But botanically speaking, raspberry and strawberry are actually an aggregate type of fruit, or like an accessory fruit, where
Okay.
the only berries on this list are banana, grape, and tomato.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it kind of has to deal with how the fruit grows from a seed and how many seeds it has altogether. But this is a
So this
perfect,
is, the visually you can kind of jump in and out of a pretty complex topic really quickly, right? Very
great
interesting.
segue. Yeah, because what we want to do then is, instead of applying it to like basic topics like fruit, we
Yeah.
can then start to apply it to more complex subjects like geometry. So here we can take the geometry topic split it up into maybe like 6 different major categories where we see things like trigonometry, things that students often dread, or we can take a look at different shapes or the elements. And this is really where the learning starts to happen. We get to take these concepts and really break them down into their major components.
And I love
We
this
can,
because I feel like we've really focused on the visual aspect, and obviously it hits that. But the interactive aspect, as I'm going through it, it's like
mhm,
it makes sense. Younger people today being able to just like click around and explore different concepts at their own pace rapidly. Like
mhm,
the most visual thing I had when I was in school is maybe watching a filmed video that might have been filmed in the 90s, and
yeah,
maybe that pacing was not exactly what I wanted, or you don't get to scroll back, or you hear an interesting idea and it might be 30 minutes before the video's over that maybe you ask the teacher a question. But this, you can jump in and it's very interactive, right?
mhm. Yeah, for sure. That's a lot of the downside of those videos is there's zero interactivity behind it. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
they might be great for visual learning if they have the specific content you're looking for and they talk about it in the specific order that you want and they give the examples that make sense to you. And so sometimes that works out for students, sometimes it doesn't. So that interactivity, the ability to kind of click through and being like, okay, now I need to focus today on triangles or on quadrilaterals. Um, this kind of interactivity really helps drive the self-learning from different students. And I think that's something that people are often missing, these learners,
Mm-hmm.
is that trying to learn by yourself is a daunting task. There's so much content you can go through. There are so many different sources you can read. There's so much information you have to absorb. So finding a way to kind of build your own path when you don't know anything about the subject is exceptionally hard.
Well, I
Wibly
think
kind of
that's a
help.
great point because as I teach myself things today, I have a general familiarity with so many different concepts, right?
Mhm.
I've gone through geometry and algebra and history and all sorts of concepts, and so most adults teaching them things have a loose familiarity with how things are supposed to go. Maybe they're trying to learn finance, right? And but they have an underlying knowledge, or at least an intuitive knowledge of algebra, right? And plugging things into formulas. And so picking up, basic business finance is not particularly difficult, but it's hard for me to even imagine, going before those elementary topics have been introduced. How would you teach yourself? Yeah, it is very like, feeling around in a dark forest trying to figure
Yeah,
out what these things mean.
yeah, I like that. This is kind of gives you that quick little overview of, okay, these are all the topics that are related to, let's say, finance. You need to know a little bit of algebra first. You need to know a little bit about economics. So it gives you that kind of rough overview that helps you get there faster. And that's ultimately what I want to do is help people learn more quickly.
That's fantastic. Any other things we want to cover on the demo?
Yeah, I think the only other thing here is that uh, when we get to additional learning material, so let's open up our filter panel. We're going to show a couple more layers. So here what we did is we added a couple more nodes. Instead of viewing just the 2 layers, now we're viewing 3.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see the different types of triangles grouped under triangle, different types of quadrilaterals grouped under this category. So Wibly is all about showcasing the relationship between concepts. But on top of that, there are so many different learning materials that a student can use to gain more insight on these particular topics. So one of the other things that Wibly is all about is sourcing information. So AI can generate a lot of information about any topic, but there's always the question of is it correct? So Wibly kind of combats that with teacher verified knowledge and sources. So a teacher might share a Khan Academy video that helps you calculate the area, or a YouTube video that gives you different examples of shapes. So Wibly wants to kind of house this repository of both knowledge and sources to help students learn and really find out what type of learning style fits them best.
Mm-hmm. And I once again I love this kind of flip on it because it's like in the past you would go direct to the source, but this is just taking the source, putting it in an interface that's more more approachable, and then they can go dig back into it. And once again,
Hmm.
if you're starting at a textbook, some topics can be very dense, very dry, very difficult to grasp. If you're starting at a visual and then going to the textbook, you still have that mental image of the concept, but you're overlaying that on top of the textbook material that you're reading, right? Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, it's like combining the textbook and just scrunching it down. So taking the table of contents and maybe the glossary and like all the pictures, and then squishing it together in this little interactive format that makes it a lot less dry. Anybody can read a textbook and learn about the information within. It just takes a lot of time and effort. So Wibly is here to help alleviate that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the demo. And,
Yeah.
as we kind of transition into kind of the last part of the conversation, I was talking with someone actually this morning, and his kids are 9 and 11 years old. And he's like, we homeschool them, we give them no screen time, da 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 da. And he actually works in tech. And so I found that very interesting in light of today's conversation and wanted to get your take because to me, I feel like we've showed all the benefits and value and differentiated value of this product. But how do you answer the question for parents and for teachers and for students about, so much of the benefits is this is on a computer, this is interactive. But how do you
Mhm.
balance that with the screen time conversation?
Yeah, I think an important aspect there is what the kids are spending their screen time on. There are so many different ways you could spend your time well, or you could spend your time poorly. And I think that is really where the control kind of comes in, where you need to make sure that they're spending time on things that help them learn. Screen time is okay in small amounts on, I don't know, random social medias. But really, like the power of the internet and the power of technology that we have today is insane for changing the way that we learn and we think about things. I think no screen time at all just shuts all of that off, saying, okay, we don't need to use technology at all, despite all of the benefits that it can give. So, really, it's about how you're using that screen time and making sure that it's quality time that's spent kind of like to help improve the life. And I think that kind of relates back to this idea of teacher backed knowledge. So whether it's or educator backed knowledge, the information found within Wibly comes from verified and validated sources. So you know that the content you're getting is going to be something a teacher has already shared within their classroom.
I love that answer because I totally agree. Because as you were saying it, I was imagining in my mind, if a student used Wibly for an hour and grasped a concept well, that's great. They especially if they're homeschooled or something, they can go play outside or hang out with
Mhm.
their friends or practice a sport or whatever. But then I imagined, maybe it takes them 2 hours or 3 hours of reading a textbook. But then that didn't really, mentally pass the smell test because I don't actually see kids like, grinding a textbook for 3 hours.
Yeah.
What happens is they get frustrated after 15 minutes and then they start scrolling their phone anyways.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's really like you can't even make a fair comparison there because the alternative, oftentimes, when kids are stuck or when adults are stuck, is okay, I'm going to jump out of this task and, I'll come
Mhm.
back to it later. And I feel like this is another way that people can use AI to kind of stay in flow, stay interacted with challenging or new material.
Yeah, AI is really powerful. Again, very much like screen time, AI can be used correctly, it can be used incorrectly, like for benefit or not. So it's all about how to use it well and in a way that, benefits you in the long run.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, Nick. I hope people really enjoyed getting to see the Wibly platform and how much it can do for students who are looking to learn and teachers who are looking to teach at a faster and deeper level. Where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, so we got our website at wibly.co, wibly.co. So there you can go find more information about the company. Join our community. We are a new community of learners recently put together. So would love to have people join. Yeah, reach out if you're interested.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the time.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks.